Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Get to the Point Tech. Today we're going to be taking a look at the iPhone 16 Pro versus the iPhone 12 mini. I wasn't really planning to make this video. I'm making it because reasons, but here I am with an opportunity to compare these two phones. And you might be asking yourself, that is a very odd comparison to be making. But there are a lot of people, including myself, who have been dailying an iPhone 12 mini or an iPhone 13 mini who will probably be finding themselves in this situation where they need to upgrade within the next 1 to 2 years, maybe 3. It really depends on how the iOS release cycle goes. But since we're here and we have the opportunity to put them on the same table and take a look at them together, I thought, why not post about it and maybe it would be useful to somebody. So I've spaced them out a bit weirdly like this because I'm trying to avoid as much of the ring light as I can, but it's inevitable, so bear with me. I'm trying to make it so that the screens are visible. I'm not doing a deep dive, but you'll get a sense of the differences between the phones, hopefully, as I've been taking a look at them. Here you can see the always-on display on the 16 Pro is alive and well. I'm still debating whether I care enough about this feature to leave it on, but since I've only had this for a little bit, I'm running with it just to see how I feel about it. And of course, on this side, we don't have the always-on display on the iPhone 12 mini, and so this screen just turns off when the screen time is out. When they're both on, they're fairly comparable. Obviously, this is multiple generations newer. You're going to have thinner bezels, maybe slightly more accurate color display, and then they go timing out again. And overall, there's just like the dynamic island versus the notch. There's a lot to see as upgrades go, but you can't help but compare. And here we go with the ring light. I'm sorry about this, but the dimensions of the phones are quite drastic. In the hand, this has always been the sweet spot for me. It's very comfortable. It's actually even smaller than the iPhone SE, which I'm recording this on as a backup because I don't have that many recording devices. Versus, you have the 16 Pro, which, yes, I can hold it in my hand, but every time I hold it in my hand, it just feels like I'm holding a piece of tech that's just a little bit bigger than I need it to be for no good reason. Quite honestly, I had to shrink the font size on this phone by like 3 notches. I think it's like second to the most small option because I just felt like a grandpa reading like massive text compared to this one. Because when I log in a moment, you'll see what I'm talking about. Let me just do that. So what you can kind of get a sense of here is that the screen is smaller, but it's not missing anything. You still have the same app grid. You're not getting an extra row or column in the Pro or even, frankly, in the Max or the Plus models. It's pretty standard Apple stuff where, it's just the same thing regardless of size. For me, I've always preferred pixel density over size of display. And so it's one of the reasons why, 4K TVs that are 40 inches are always going to look nicer than the 4K TVs that are 110 inches because it's the same number of pixels. It's just in a smaller, dense format. And so the pixels per inch on this one are higher than on this one, even though it is a 12 versus a 16 Pro. That was a really convoluted way of saying I prefer this screen in terms of how much I could fit on it versus holding something this big and not really gaining much more for it. I'll use the web browser as an example. It's not the perfect example, but it gives you a sense of how little difference the screen sizes make in terms of day-to-day use. With the Best Buy website, for example, I'm pretty much seeing almost the exact same information. Yes, the Shop Now button here is cut off on the bottom of the 12 mini, but as I'm scrolling around, functionally, these are very similar in terms of what you can see. Responsive web pages have always scaled down accordingly for different sizes. And so you can see that on display here. The only time you're going to really get the benefits of responsive design in the web is if you get to the tablet size where everything changes. But between these two phones, there's no real changes. On the back side, it's actually interesting. They're both made of glass on the back, but the 16 Pro has this matte finish I'm not exactly sure how they've accomplished this. Obviously, there's a massive camera array here that is not on the 12 mini. For what it's worth, these cameras have treated me very well over the last couple of years. I've never really had any complaints about them, to be honest. I'm still running this one through its paces. I don't have much to say about it yet other than, wow, the camera lenses are massive and they stick out a lot. One of the cooler things you get on the 16 Pro that you don't get on the non-Pro is the telephoto lens. It's one of the things I wish I could have gotten on the 12 mini, but it wasn't an option. Now that I have it, I haven't really benefited from it just yet, but I haven't also had this phone for very long, so we'll see how that goes. I will say though, the macro mode has been interesting to use. I really miss carrying around a DSLR and having the ability to get really close to objects, and having the telephoto lens also gives you that natural bokeh and depth of field. So I'm hoping that I can kind of reignite my, passion for photography by having, a phone that can get a little bit closer to DSLR quality in my pocket. Now, please don't at me. Like, I know this is not a DSLR, believe me, but they say the best camera you have is the one that you have in your pocket. And so here we are, and I hope that I'll get to benefit from it. One other thing to note about the differences between the two phones, I really thought I'd get used to the weight. It's been a few days now. It is not easy to get used to the Pro weight. It would have been a lot easier to transition from a mini to let's say a 16 non-Pro. That would have still been heavier, but not quite big of a leap. The Pro adds quite a bit of heft. I'll get used to it eventually, but between the heft of the phone and the fact that it's thicker, and I like to use cases for my phones, which we'll get to in a second. Generally, my phone is much bigger than it has ever been, and it's heavier, and I'm still getting used to it. I don't know if this is a useful comparison, but here you can see the thicknesses don't look like much when they're side by side, but in the hand, you can definitely tell the difference. The 16 Pro is still impressively thin. It's just that the camera bump just sticks out quite a bit more, to the point where even with your case on, it still has that wobble, and that's not something that I had with the 12 mini. I mean, while we're here, we could talk about the camera control button. I didn't think I was going to like it when I first started using it, but I'm trying to get used to it a bit more. I don't find the soft touch, the light touch and scrolling to be intuitive. I'm probably just going to straight up disable those. But the half press to lock focus and exposure, and then full press to take the photo has been handy. Using it as a shortcut to open up the camera has been pretty intuitive. I've been using that quite often. I was worried about taking photos with the button causing me to move my phone while I press the button, and sure enough, the amount of pressure that's required to actually press the button is more than I would like it to be. You can customize the amount of pressure, or the force they call it, for the light press, but you don't seem to be able to customize the amount of force needed for the full press. That's a bit disappointing, but I'll continue to play around with this one. It's a bit random, but probably worth noting that at least here in Canada, we still get the SIM card tray. But interestingly enough, when I migrated from the 12 mini to the 16 Pro, it turned my physical SIM into an eSIM automatically without asking me. I thought at some point I would just physically remove the SIM from the 12 and put it into the 16, but it didn't even ask me, and all of a sudden my phone was activated and working. So that was interesting. I guess I don't need this tray anymore, but I wasn't expecting that. And while we're on this side, we have to talk about the action button. I think it's nifty, but I haven't found a good use for it yet. For now, I've remapped it from the silent and ring options to the flashlight, because why not? But realistically, I already have the flashlight and the camera on the front of the screen, so maybe over time I'll figure out what else I can do with this. Maybe there's some automation I can set up to make my life easier. But for now, nothing to write home about. USB-C has been great so far. It's actually really rigid. Once the plug goes in, it really doesn't want to come out, which is kind of nifty, and also unexpected coming from the lightning port on the 12. I had just gone into the Apple Store to do a battery replacement on the 12 mini, and at the same time I had these intermittent charging issues with the lightning port Turned out it was just debris, that like lint and dust that had accumulated in the lightning port, which they were able to remove using what they said was a brush. I should have asked for more information, but I didn't get it. So now that's back to normal and great. I wonder if the USB-C port is less susceptible to that, but I doubt it. So that's something that I'll keep an eye out for. Speaking of battery replacements, on the 12 mini, I didn't really have any battery issues with the 12 mini. It was great all the way until now, but I replaced it because it was at 80% and I was planning to give this phone to a family member, and so I would rather them have a full 100% battery. And with that, it has been great. I really do think that in some cases the battery life concerns of the Mini has been overblown, but it is completely up to your use case and your usage. I'm not a very big heavy phone user. I am on it all day, but not for everything. I still have a laptop around for when I'm doing, important things. Right, cases. I almost forgot. So here we have two cases. I'm still picking which one I'm going to end up keeping. They're similar but different. This one is a bit of this harder plastic shell type material. It doesn't feel rubbery, but it's pretty flexible. It's I don't even know how to pronounce that. Spigen case. I picked this one up from Best Buy. It's got all the right cutouts for the buttons. It has big cutouts for the speaker, the USB-C port, and the microphone. Importantly, it has the cutout for the camera control, but it still protects the edges. Although I do have a complaint about this one where, although it does protect the edge a bit, one little bit of the edge on this side is a bit exposed, and that's unfortunate. And the inside is pretty standard. It's got MagSafe, but I haven't been able to fully test that yet. On the other hand, while I was at Best Buy trying to buy this case, I ended up finding this one, which is just a straightforward Insignia, which is Best Buy's in-house brand case, and I was surprised at how cheap and good it looks, so I bought it. Similarly, it has, the right cutouts, although interestingly enough on the Spigen, you can see that there's around the buttons, there's kind of gaps. I don't know if you can really get a sense of that. To me, that just seems like entry points for dust. I'm not a big fan of that, but I'm not gonna ding it too much for that. It just seems like an unnecessary entry point for liquid and dust. Whereas on here, it's completely sealed. And on this side, the camera control is completely protecting both sides of the camera control button and not just one side. One of the reasons why I didn't go with OtterBox, although I normally do get OtterBox cases, is that for the 16 and 16 Pro generation, they've decided to completely just give up on design, and they just have this massive cutout all the way down to here and across. So the camera control area of the phone is completely exposed front and back. It's just not acceptable. The only downside of this is that because it's a silicone case and overall it's pretty sturdy silicone, but right here, you see that? When you're pressing the button, this flimsy bit of rubber does move around, and that's a bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world. Interestingly enough, instead of having massive cutouts for the speaker and the microphone, they have holes. Now, I'm going to do a bit more testing on whether or not this inhibits the ability for people to hear you well, but I haven't had any issues with it so far. So far, so good. And the reason why I point it out is because historically, I've had issues with dust and lint accumulating in the phone itself through the holes on the case, because they're usually this massive cutouts. So I was wondering if this would make it better or worse, because in theory, the dust and lint will just clog these holes and then you won't hear anything. But at least it'll be on the case and not on the phone itself. In terms of price, this one was more expensive, but it was on sale, so it ended up being the same price as this one, which was regular price, 25 bucks Canadian, and this one was 25 bucks Canadian on sale, down from, I think, 35 or 40. Neither case is incredibly expensive. Also, considering they both have MagSafe, you can see, well, the Insignia one doesn't have the specific thing showing, but it does have the MagSafe inside. And so that's pretty good overall. I'd say MagSafe cases used to be really expensive and they've come down in price, although I don't know the quality of these ones. So when I'm able to get a more definitive verdict on these, I will post a comment with an update. I don't know which case I'm going to keep yet. I like them both for different reasons, and I wish I could just get a case that did both of those things that I like in one. This one feels a bit sturdier, whereas this one comes across as a bit flimsier, although it has a nice rigid feel to it anyway. So I don't really know, honestly, why I'm feeling like it's flimsier, because it really isn't. Both of them have the camera cutouts that stick out to protect the massive camera array there. And the main difference between the two is that because this is more of a slippery rubber, it doesn't the grip is a little bit different. It feels more rugged, but it doesn't collect dust as much as this one does. This is this typical silicone case that when you put it in your pocket and you take it out, it comes out covered in lint, and then you have to kind of brush it off. Again, none of these are deal breakers. They're just notable design characteristics. So that's mostly what I wanted to cover. I didn't have a script. I was just kind of riffing it. And so, let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns. Let me know. Are you a 12 or 13 mini user who's resisting the inevitable march towards these larger phones, or are you finding the 16 Pro or 16 are kind of not doing it for you? Let me know what you're thinking, and if I can answer any further questions about it, or if you have any ideas for future videos, let me know, and I'll see what I can do. For now, though, I say thank you so much for watching, and if you found this video to be useful, please like and subscribe, leave your comments down below. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you in the next one.